Woo, y'all. Woo! If you can see my arm, I'm getting chills. Okay. What's good, guys? It's Alissa. If you're new here, hello. This is a new series on my channel that I like to call Discomfort movies. Everyone has comfort movies, movies that make you feel warm and cozy and fuzzy inside, but some movies are literally made for the sole purpose of making you feel uncomfortable, literally making you squirm in your seats. That is a discomfort movie to me. So the discomfort movie that we're going to be talking about today is a movie called The Dead Girl. Released in 2006, this movie follows 5 women and their connection to the murder of a young woman. This is a movie that I actually watched as a kid, and I just want to see if it still holds up. And at the end of the video, I will rate my level of discomfort from... Okay. And at the end, I will rate my level of discomfort from 1 through 10. Also, spoiler warning, if you have not seen this movie, I will literally be getting into every single detail of this movie. This movie starts with our asocial main character, whose name is Arden, who's going outside to eat a sandwich. And if she looks familiar to you, yeah. The iconic Toni Collette. You guys may know her from Hereditary. I personally remember her from a show called US of Terra. I was watching a whole bunch of shows that I was not supposed to be watching. Nurse Jackie, US of Terra, Weeds. Yeah, I shouldn't have been watching those at my age, but hey, I was. You notice in the beginning of the movie that Arden is laying in bed with someone, and that's going to be important later. As she's eating her sandwich outside in the desert, she notices a crow circling around a certain spot. So of course, she goes and checks it out. And here's where the title of the movie becomes relevant. Arden stumbles upon a dead body in the desert that has obvious signs of a young woman being murdered and left there for dead. Examining her body, Arden notices a tattoo that says 1213 and a necklace with the word taken. My necklace does not say taken, my necklace says Alissa. Arden then returns home and is immediately pestered by someone who is calling her name over and over and over. Then we fade out to the title card, which says The Stranger. One of my favorite kind of stories is when all the characters' lives are somehow intertwined by like one thing. It's kind of like those movies like Valentine's Day or Love Actually. I love those movies. This movie is actually told in 5 parts, all connecting these women to the dead body that was just found. We learn that the person pestering Arden is actually her mother. They have this like codependent, very dysfunctional relationship, and they even sleep in the same bed together, as we seen in the beginning of the movie. As Arden is prepping the medication for her mother, she pulls out a necklace from her pocket. The necklace being the taken necklace that was found on the dead girl. Arden is a little bit strange, and we will see that as the movie goes on, but let me continue. She then takes that necklace that she found on the dead body that is covered in hair, blood, and God knows what else, and puts it in a mug in the cabinet in the kitchen. Ew. So after she does all of this, then she decides to report the body that she found in the desert to the police. For some reason, I've been watching a lot of true crime lately. As a person who is not really into true crime, I feel like I'm a very cynical person, so I can get weighed down by the weight of the world and like the realities of like these monsters that are out there. But I have watched something called Web of Death on Hulu. It was pretty good. And one thing that I really enjoyed about watching that was the conclusions that they came to, because there were actually people that were invested in identifying these Jane Does and giving them their identity back, because there could be family members that have been searching for these people for years, you know. And it's like, it's a one-off situation. Like, you know, obviously every Jane Doe can't be, you know, identified, but I really enjoyed that part of it. But also on the flip side of that, it was like, even though they were identifying these women, it was so like sad and tragic to see like the flip side of it, that yes, we've identified this Jane Doe, but the thing is like, this is a Jane Doe, and now they have answers on how, you know, these women lost their lives, and it's usually brutal. And I just hate thinking about like these sickos and these monsters that are really out there in the world. So I be trying to shield myself from that sometimes. That's why I don't be watching true crime. I literally had nightmares after watching that Epstein documentary, and I hit a pause on that since whenever that documentary came out. Arden's life becomes hellish after word spreads about the dead girl that was found in the desert, and her mom even starts berating her and calling her stupid for reporting it to the police. She would rather Ardyn have turned a blind eye instead of having the police swarming her house. Stupid. And it's at this time that Ardyn can't even walk the streets because she's being surrounded by journalists and paparazzi, and there's even people whispering about her and saying like, oh, that's the one that found the dead body in the grocery store, and she just pretends like she doesn't hear it, but of course she did. But something creepy happens right after this. She's in the freezer aisle and there's this like creepy guy just staring at her, and when she makes eye contact with him, he just walks to the back. And then she walks past and he's still staring at her, and it's like, okay. So then she checks out her groceries and he asks to help her with her groceries. So of course this guy confesses that he saw her on TV and she seems like a really sweet, nice lady, and red flag number one. He just seems very creepy. And then the thing of him automatically knowing who she was because he's seen her off TV, it's like, girl, I don't know if you heard, but they're murdering women and dumping them in the desert out here, so please tread lightly and be cautious. So the grocery store worker, whose name is Rudy, says that he would like to take her out sometime. And Ardyn doesn't even get her answer out before Rudy starts projecting and being like, so you don't want to go on a date with me? He assumes she has a boyfriend, but really Ardyn just has a psychotic, clingy mom at home. And he reassures her, oh my God, my sister just sent me a video of my nephew walking for the first time. So of course she's hesitant, but he reassures her that he's not going to harm her. Okay. So she ends up agreeing to go out with Rudy when Rudy gets off work. This isn't something that Ardyn usually does because she does have a clingy, psychotic mother. So as she's putting on her makeup, she's trying to keep the noise down and be quiet to not alarm her mother or, raise any flags as to what she has going on for real. Ardyn gets alarmed by her mom and quickly tries to cover up her makeup and hide what she was doing. So when she goes to check on her mom because her mom called her mom immediately starts belittling her, and she even attempted to snatch the towel off of Ardyn's head to see what was underneath. So following her mom's demands, Ardyn removes her towel, to which her mom said that she looked like a $2 hooker, then belly laughed, followed by, and I quote, "You would have to pay them." Her mom is so horrible. Like, oh my gosh. Ardyn ignored that and she reaches for the spoiled milk, which was initially what her mom called her in there for, to complain about some spoiled milk. And when she reaches for it, her mom throws the milk in her face. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, this lady is really good at playing an evil mother. Then I Googled her and she plays the evil mother from Carrie. So it's all check it out. As her mom is just heckling her, this makes Ardyn snap. So her mom implies that it should have been Ardyn instead of her boy, which I'm assuming is Ardyn's brother. And this infuriates Ardyn enough for her to break a glass that she's holding and hold the shard to her mom's neck. So in disbelief of her actions, Ardyn packs her bags and leaves for good, with her mom crying out that she's bleeding. After all of that, she's picked up by Rudy, whose immediate icebreaker in the car is to bring up the dead girl. I don't know, he seems to be some sort of like serial killer fanboy who has a lot of interest in this sort of thing. So he points out the cuts on the dead girl's hands and says that those have to be defense wounds. So their date location ends up being in the woods. Not sketchy at all. So Ardyn decides to show Rudy the necklace that she took from the dead girl, and he asks her to hold it. And this seems to set the mood for some reason, so Rudy leans in to give Ardyn a kiss. And this is like top 3 awkward moments for sure. Things get really eerie when Ardyn rejects this kiss from Rudy, and he asks why she believes he brought her there. The date in the woods. Again, not sketchy at all. He just kept asking over and over and over if he can kiss her, and then finally Ardyn agreed. He asks her if she's gonna hold still this time and then says, "Am I gonna have to tie you up?" Y'all. To which Ardyn says, "Maybe." I can't make this up. Immediately, I'm just like, okay, what the hell is going on right now? Like, what is this? What am I watching? Instead, they role play as if she's being kidnapped, which involves him tying her up, and then they get freaky in the backseat. And even though he agreed to this freaks Rudy out because Arden is not kissing him back and she's not being receptive to the make-out session. So he asks the weirdest thing ever, and he's like, do you want me to grape you? And yells at her to take off her gloves that she was wearing. So yeah, I don't know. Rudy's weird. Arden's a little bit strange. This whole scene was just very strange. So then he yells at her to take off her gloves, which reveals that Arden has similar cuts on her hand as the dead girl. But we know that this is from her breaking the glass right before she left when she got into that altercation with her mom. And instead of getting stitches because it was really bad cuts, she wants Rudy to kiss her cuts and make it feel better. I'm assuming things got hot and heavy because time passes by and they're just laying in the woods, and Rudy just continues to talk about serial murderers. Then they pan to Arden and she says, I don't want to talk about serial killers anymore. Strangest post-nut clarity, but hey, as long as you got there, girl. So in the morning, after all of this, Arden and Rudy drive to a payphone and she calls the police to report a woman left alone in the house where they found the dead girl. So we transition to the section of the movie which is titled The Sister. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna speed through this section of the movie because it is the least interesting to me, but very important to the movie nonetheless. So right before this, in the payphone, we actually saw Arden analyzing a missing poster that was in the payphone, in the phone booth. So a young girl named Jenny went missing and has yet to be found. So our main character, Leah, who is the sister, is having a one-sided conversation with her mom to choose which photo to use for Jenny's missing children's board. Leah seems dissociated, and it's revealed in her therapy session that she actually wants to move on from the disappearance of Jenny. Her sister has been gone for 15 years, and she will never be okay with it, but she just wants some type of closure to be able to move on with her life. So Leah is at work with her coworker Derek, James Franco jump scare, who invites her to a little get together after work. She lets him down easy and then she gets back to work, but it's revealed that Leah is what I assume to be a medical examiner or a student to become a medical examiner. So as Leah is prepping this body, we see the cuts on the victim's hands and the tattoo that says 1213, revealing that this is in fact the dead girl that Arden found near her house. So while examining her body, Leah discovers a birthmark in between the fingers of this victim, and it's the same birthmark that her sister Jenny has. She does some digging into the scripture that is found on the victim, the 1213 tattoo, and the scripture is Genesis 12:13 that says, "Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister." She takes this information to her coworkers, who does a DNA test on her. So she's waiting on the results of the DNA test. She has a really strong hunch that this could be her lost sister, since the body was found 10 miles from the state park where her sister went missing 15 years ago. But her mom doesn't want to believe that this person is her missing child, claiming that the victim doesn't have Jenny's eyes. So after she has this discussion with her mom, Leah decides to sit in Jenny's room and kind of soak in a new life to finally move on from this and finally getting closure. She also reveals that she's been taking antidepressants and that she would spend most of her time in bed before this to her coworker Derek. So most of this section really is just Leah's romance with Derek, so I'm not about to get into all of that, because most importantly in this section, while Leah is at work, the DNA test comes back. And it is not a match. So the victim is in fact not Leah's missing sister. But they did find the victim's mother, who's gonna drive down from Washington to ID the body. And I just realized I have no idea where this movie takes place. The Jane Doe is identified to be a Krista Kutcher, which was confirmed by her birth certificate and a photo that her mom, Melora, faxed over to the detectives. So I guess Leah's mom was right. That was not her daughter, and the victim in fact did not have Jenny's eyes. And the conclusion of this section actually had me torn a little bit, because on one end I do see where Leah is coming from. You should want to move on. It's been 15 years. You know, you can't stay stuck in that headspace. And especially since this whole thing was taking a toll on Leah, you know, I can see where she's coming from, where she wants to move on from this. But on the other hand, I see where her mother is also coming from, because as a mother, of course, you don't want to give up on finding your daughter. 15 years, honestly, is not that long of a time. Like in the true crimes that I watched, like those women were missing for at least 30 years and still end up being ID'd. So it's possible. And she even reassured Leah that if the shoe was in the other foot and if you were missing, girl, I would not give up on you. So I am not giving up on Jenny. And that is commendable to me. So I was torn between like who was in the right. Obviously, they're both right. But what do you guys think? Move on, keep looking. Let me know in the comments. Alright, so now we get to the section of the movie that just simply pissed me off. And this segment is called The Wife. So this part starts with the wife questioning her husband about going out late. He constantly goes out late and he reassures her that he's just going out for a drive. So she begins to nag him about how he never invites her anywhere, and when she invites him to go out, he never even wants to go. These are all valid concerns. But when she asks him when he's going to be coming back, he says, I don't know. The wife, whose name is Ruth, is fed up with her husband, whose name is Carl, and they manage a storage company, and she constantly has to pick up his slack because of what they're arguing about right now. He constantly goes out and doesn't come back until late, and she has to pick up the work for him, and he just goes out constantly. He keeps doing this, leaving the house at ungodly hours. Carl seems very nonchalant about her concerns, but he eventually does blow up on her when Ruth claims that he's trying to always get away from her. So he storms out, and this leaves Ruth frantic. The next morning, of course, Ruth is left alone and Carl is nowhere to be found. So that morning, when some prospective customers come to inquire about a storage unit, Ruth shoos them away, saying that that is not her job. That is not my job. Eventually, she gives in and assists the customers with an empty space. So the customers end up coming back to her to be like, hey, the storage that you just gave us is not empty. Ruth is like, it should be empty. It's listed as empty. But when Ruth goes to the storage unit, she's like, oh, this is actually not empty. So she goes in and examines the unit herself and finds a dresser that has Ziploc bags of dirt and maggots. So she's completely disgusted, and she was like, you know what, I'm gonna just find you guys a new unit. So this leaves her curious and a little bit concerned, because why is there stuff in a unit that's listed as empty? So when they leave, she decides to take a closer look. So she finds out that there's not only dirt, but Ziploc bags of women's clothing, bloody women's clothing. Inside the bottom drawer was a trash bag filled with women's belongings, including a wallet of a woman named Georgia Denby. So she's like, I've seen this before. So she runs to the office and finds a newspaper, and she shockingly discovers the headline saying "Killer Claims 8" with a photo of Georgia Denby sitting right at the top. So later that night, when Carl came back home, Ruth watches him in the kitchen where she planted the newspaper in his eye view. He picks it up slowly, but then he puts it back down. And when he sits down next to her, she asks him, she's like, how'd you get those scratches on your neck? To which he says he got into a fight at the bar. Ruth immediately shuts this down because she's like, ain't no way you got into a fight at the bar. So she didn't believe that at all, and she claims that she knows that he's been out doing Mike knows what with Mike knows whatever gutter slut trash. From the beginning of this segment, Ruth seems to be very religious, and she doesn't like to take the Lord's name in vain, yet somehow with the suspicions of her husband being a serial murderer, she finds a way to call the victims slutty gutter trash. So she continues to question him about his whereabouts, and he continues to lie. So apparently they've had run-ins with him cheating with prostitutes before. Could be prostitutes, could be her exaggerating and just calling women prostitutes even though it's her husband that's slipping out, but okay. And she's done with it. She's like, she doesn't want the cops sniffing around here, similar to Arden's mom in the beginning. So Carl storms out and Ruth chases him down to find him removing a trash bag from the trunk of his car and hiding it. Even after all that though, she still prepared his TV dinner, and honestly, she should have poisoned that shit. So after sitting down, she stares at him and asks, do you know anything about the dead girls? To which Carl responds, no. She's not satisfied with that answer, so she waits for him to go to bed, and she goes back to that storage unit. And to her surprise and mine, she finds new items of women's clothing laid out onto the floor. So she packs all that stuff up and drives down to the police station, but before she goes in, she realizes that she's actually covered in blood from packing all that stuff up. So that spooks her, and that makes her flee from the police station. So instead, she decides to go back home and set the items in the storage on fire, never telling anyone about what she discovered. We're getting closer now to the reveal of the dead girl whose name we discovered is Krista Kutcher. First, we're going to cover the fourth section of the movie, which is called The Mother. Of course, we found out earlier that Krista's mother's name is Melora. So Melora has now made her way down to the detective's office and is talking with them and reveals to us that Krista actually ran away from home when she was 16 years old, and that was the last time that she's seen her. She says that Krista was very angry and didn't want anything to do with her or her stepfather, so she relocated to Los Angeles. Melora also revealed to the detective that when Krista was younger, she wanted to be on TV, so it wasn't really much a surprise to her that Krista was in Los Angeles because Krista wanted to go to Hollywood. And this little piece of information actually stuck with me because it says so much without saying a lot, is that Krista is a very determined and hopeful person, and she's gonna go after what she really wants in life. The detective excuses himself, and Melora catches a glimpse of the crime scene photo peeking out of his folder on his desk, and she opens it up to find the disturbing context of her daughter's death. She catches a glimpse of Krista's last known address and decides to stay in town a little bit longer to pay it a visit. The address ends up being a motel, so she asks the lady at the window if she could go to Krista's unit. The employee tells her that Krista no longer lives there, and it's currently occupied by the woman who is standing at the payphone on the corner. Melora tries to approach the woman at the payphone, but this woman is in the middle of a little bit of a crisis, and the woman at the payphone ends up being the iconic Kerry Washington. So when Melora finally gets her attention, she asks if she could see her room. Context clues: Kerry Washington's character, whose name is Rosetta, seems to be a sex worker. So she allows Melora to see her unit for a fee. She's like, girl, you have to pay me. You can come in here. I don't know who you are, but I'm leaving here with something. As Melora is examining this room, of course, she discovers the details of her daughter's new life. So she asks Rosetta what the men that pay her make her do. Obviously, this is indirectly trying to see what her daughter was also getting up to. So all these questions makes Rosetta believe that Melora is a reporter. So Melora keeps asking questions about Krista, digging to see if she expressed why she left home. And Rosetta reveals in that moment that Krista's stepfather was actually molesting her, and she ran away because the mother probably chose him. Melora then has no choice but to reveal that she is in fact Krista's mother, reassuring Rosetta that she did not know this. So this is the first time that she's actually hearing this information. So after sobbing in the bathroom for an unknown amount of time, Melora offers to take Rosetta to lunch. Rosetta only agreed to go to lunch with her. She was hesitant at first because Melora said she was going to pay her for lunch. So
maybe I'm outside getting tricked down. That's what I like.
The next scene, we see Rosetta digging into her plate, just spilling more information about Krista's lore, and she tells Melora all these stories about how Krista had like 3 jobs to pay for her rent, one being at a nail salon, and she stopped doing sex work and drugs to try to have a better life for her child. And Melora's like, hold up. Great story, but Krista has a baby. And she's like, yeah, Krista has a baby girl, actually, named Ashley, who she would always send gifts and write notes to, even though Ashley can't read. And so Melora goes to find Ashley, who's staying in somewhat of a group home. It's not an official group home. It's just a lady that's taking care of other people's kids. So she takes Ashley with her and becomes frantic when Rosetta refuses to sit with Ashley in the back seat because they don't have a car seat. So Rosetta is being cynical about all of this because her life experiences probably caused her to have to detach from people and things, and she's genuinely concerned about Ashley's safety, but she's being standoffish, claiming that it's not her concern because Ashley is not her child. So she's like, you gonna get her a car seat, but at the same time being like, no, I'm not gonna sit in the back seat with her. Like, this is not my child. You know what? Actually, I shouldn't be worried about this. That's not my child. But she actually is genuinely concerned. So after Melora bathes Ashley and sings "You Are My Sunshine," my only sunshine. To her, Rosetta wants Melora to reassure her that she's going to keep her and to promise that she's actually going to take care of her, revealing that Ashley's dad could be anybody. So she wrestles with the fact that she almost went and got her, but how is she, Rosetta, going to take care of the kid? Melora asked Rosetta if she actually loved her daughter, and Rosetta revealed that Krista actually tried to give her a necklace, but she refused to take it, that she just couldn't, and she began to cry. So the next day, Melora takes Rosetta home, and Rosetta lets her have a picture of Krista, and it was one of Krista's favorite pictures because it made her look how she wanted to feel. Man, do I miss Brittany Murphy. This is actually, I think, the first movie that I've seen her in. If it wasn't this, it was probably Clueless. And I absolutely loved her in this role. I feel like she absolutely killed this role. We're introduced to Krista, who's in a toy store. She witnesses a little boy bullying his sister, and she purposely bumps into him. And when she goes to help him up, she starts digging her nails into his hand. And she pretends that it was him that did it to her. She's like, ow, that wasn't very nice. So the mom immediately believes that it was her son in the wrong because he probably does this all the time. Krista then leaves the toy store with a ballerina bunny to meet her boyfriend Thanos. Not really, but it really is Josh Brolin. His name is actually Tarlo. She tells him that she brought the stuffed bunny for her kid Ashley's birthday tomorrow, but she needs a ride to Norwalk to bring it to her. Tarlo refuses to bring her there because he has work, so she tries to negotiate with him by offering to do some strings for some change, but he's still not going for it. He buys her a gift, and when she opens it up, it's shown to be the taken necklace that she wore at the time of her death when Arden discovered her body. It's not enough for Krista, who would rather have a ride to Norwalk than this necklace that she did not ask for, but Tarlo insists for her to take it. Krista has a childlike spirit and gets along with just about everybody, but she's also very headstrong, which gets her in a lot of unfortunate predicaments. So Krista tells Tarlo a story about how her mom would always get the wrong gifts for her birthday, only to find out that her mom would only buy things if it was on sale. So Krista doesn't want this for her daughter. She doesn't want her daughter to grow up like that. She wants Ashley to have everything that she wants, because sometimes you should just get the things that you actually want. The story ends up making Tarlo sad, so in turn, he agrees to take her to Norwalk. Krista is so excited that she reveals that she actually made that story up just to get him to take her. She preps her handwritten card for Ashley and is all set to go, but then Tarlo gets called into work last minute and can't take her anymore. So they get into it real bad, and she loses it and decides to walk to her destination, refusing to take Tarlo's ride. So she walks to the motel that we've seen Melora go to where she met Rosetta, and she asks the employee that we also met in the previous segment for her motorcycle. After asking if Krista has the rent, Krista lies and says it is in her room. She knows she's lying, and the employee agrees to let her use the bike if it can start. So the bike has problems. Put a pin in that. Krista goes to the hotel room to find Rosetta beaten up in the bed. And it is also confirmed here that she and Rosetta were involved romantically, contrary to what Rosetta was telling herself. And I guess it doesn't help that Krista is now gone, which is probably why she practices detachment. Krista insists on Rosetta telling her who did this to her, but Rosetta probably knows that Krista is going to do something rash. So we see here that the necklace that Rosetta actually refused to take was the taken necklace that Tarlo gave to Krista. And even though Rosetta refused to tell Krista who did this to her, she puts two and two together herself and goes to handle that herself. So Rosetta couldn't stop her, and Krista promised that she was going to come back. Krista finds Tom's car, who is the person that did this to Rosetta, and spray paints it and smashes it in. He catches her mid destroying his property and punches her in the face. Before he can really do her in, because it was getting real bad, she sprays his face with the spray can and starts beating him up real bad. She feels invigorated after this and drives off, cheering on her motorcycle. But the celebration comes to an end when the bike breaks down on the freeway. She calls Rosetta on the side of the road on a payphone to say that she's gonna get them out of this hell and take them to a place where there's trees and sky. Rosetta is of course very cynical, and she doesn't believe that Krista is actually going to do this for her, and she also refuses to tell Krista that she loves her over the phone, even after Krista asked her over and over, because that's really what she wanted to hear in that moment. And also in this moment, we see that Krista sees the poster of Leah's missing sister Jenny in the phone booth as well. I don't know why I keep saying photo booth. This was the last conversation that Rosetta and Krista had. So since the bike broke down, Krista decides to hitchhike off the side of the freeway. And with 9 minutes left in the movie, I start to get this uneasy feeling that I usually get when I watch this movie. Thumb up on the side of the road, no one is stopping for her until one car finally pulls around to get her. The car ride is silent, but of course, Krista breaks the ice. When the camera finally pans over to the driver, we see that it's Carl, the husband from the section, the wife. Woo, y'all. Woo! If you can see my arm, I'm getting chills. Okay. She asks Carl if he can give her a ride to Norwalk. He asks very creepily if that's where she lives. She tells her that it's where her daughter lives, and she wants to get there for her birthday tomorrow. But looking at the clock, it's already past 12:13 a.m. to be exact, which she reveals is the time that her daughter Ashley was born. So her tattoo was in fact not a scripture, but a timestamp. Carl says that he has to make a stop, but he can probably take her to Norwalk. This makes Krista so excited, and she is eternally grateful for Carl because she can bring Ashley chocolate chip pancakes for when she wakes up. We fade out in slow motion, and Krista continues to speak fondly of Ashley. And unfortunately, that is how her story ends. And if you notice, Krista's outfit is the outfit that Ruth found in the storage unit that she put in the trash bag to take to the police station. And this movie just has the ability to completely kill your mood. It's literally one of the most tragic movies that I've ever seen, this and maybe The Lovely Bones. If you've seen The Dead Girl before, please let me know your thoughts. I would rate this movie from a level of discomfort. Honestly, I'll give it like a 5 because it's not necessarily anything gory or gruesome, but as the movie goes on, it definitely just weighs on your spirit. So yeah, don't recommend this movie, but if you like to be sad, go ahead and watch it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you would like to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. All that information is in my description box down below. But if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell to stay up to date with posts and uploads from me. But for now, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you guys in another Discomfort movie video. More to come soon, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.